Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read SHEILAMAC's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. If life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.SHEILAMAC.com today.
Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the SHEILAMAC Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAARADIO. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Welcome to the SHEILAMAC Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, SHEILAMAC, and today we have special guest Minister Miko. She is the CEO and founder of Expressions of Praise Global Movement Ministry, EOP. EOP was birthed in 2001 out of the Boys and Girls Club of Ford Heights, Illinois. Their goal there has always been to impact, inspire, encourage, build character, and bring a sense of belonging to today's youth. EOP does this by bringing a level of comfortability to youth to express themselves both in and beyond the paint. All right, welcome to the show, Mika.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sheila.
And I'd like to start off this show. Actually, this whole show came about based on my new best-selling book, which is behind me, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. I wrote it right before our pandemic. And we have had situation and things that have never even come to my mind. So right now is a tough time. And I'd love to hear if you have a story to share with the audience about a time in your business or personal life where you experienced a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Okay. There are so many. I'm just going to be transparent. So my foundation, I'm an educator. So I've been an educator for 22 years, and I have experienced a lot. My career began when I was actually a product of my environment, is what I like to call it. I was born and raised in a little small poverty-stricken town called Fort Heights, Illinois. And I went back to Fort Heights after graduating college, and I started teaching in one of the elementary schools there. And that's where my foundation is. That's also how Expressions of Praise got started. I also worked at the Boys and Girls Club there, and a lot of my youth, they needed, a sense of belonging. And so God had given me this special gift of mime, and I went and taught some of the youth of Fort Heights how to mime. My career in Fort Heights basically ended after teaching for 14 years. I was actually, and this is part of my testimony, it's kind of hard to talk about sometimes, but when you think of getting bullied, you don't think that adults get bullied. And I was an adult that actually got bullied. I was bullied by administration when I worked in that school district. I was very active in the union. I was the union president for several years. We had a new superintendent that came in. He was from the business world, and he was all about the numbers. He used to say, if you don't grow, you got to go. Well, that wasn't my problem. I had the test scores. I did, what I was supposed to do for children. But what became difficult is when the demographics of the town began to change. So, like I said, it was a very small town. It was a town where everyone knows everyone. And at the time, the town was undergoing some reconstruction. And basically, parents were given two options. Either they could move, because what they did was they started to tear down the project homes. And parents were given two choices. Either you can move to the other project homes, like across the highway is what they called it, or you could get what they call a Section 8 voucher, and you can move out of the city. So a lot of parents, they wanted more and better for their children. So they began to move out of the town. And so some of the parents that were left, they were between a rock and a hard place in a sense, because they didn't really know, their rights for their children. And some of the children, they needed extra, they needed more, and I began to educate parents. I began to educate children on how to be an advocate for themselves. If your child needed a, small group setting, if your child needed a therapeutic setting, then I was the one that trying to let them know what their rights were.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah,
administration doesn't like that. Let's just put it like that. And a lot of our teachers were in some situations where they found that they were victims of bullying also. In fact, we had a teacher that was a teacher that actually committed suicide because of the behavior and the treatment that she was getting. And everything, as far as her depression that she went into, it basically became too much. And she committed suicide because of the unfair treatment that she was getting. So rest in peace to Mary E. Thorson. She is a colleague of mine. She was loved. And there's actually a documentary out called Dying to Teach. And it's on YouTube. And that documentary gives more insight on the things that we were going through in that district. Well, at the time, again, like I told you, I was very active in the union, and I was the union president. So now it's time for me to be the voice for the children, the voice for my colleagues. And because of the fact that I was the voice, then I became a victim. So I tried to fight the good fight, but when you're fighting a fight where people are afraid because either they may be the breadwinners in their families or whatever their case is, it was tough. So I started seeking therapy. Actually, what I thought was stress. At the time I was uneducated. I didn't know that stress was a form of depression. And so I began to get help, because it was just too much. And my therapist advised me to resign, but I didn't want to resign with my children getting ready to take a state test, etc. So I continued to hang in there with them. The last 5 weeks of the school year, testing's, over, everyone's pretty much knowing if they're going to the next grade, etc. Then I took a leave of absence. I took a leave of absence from the school. I took a leave of absence from Boys and Girls Club, summer, anything school-wise for that summer. And I knew that God had told me that I was a teacher, because I was second guessing, like, am I supposed to be here? Am I, what am I supposed to be doing? And God spoke clearly. He said, you are a teacher, but I need you to move. So I was very uncomfortable. You're teaching for 14 years in the same district. You're comfortable with the parents, the students, the staff. You got an uncomfortable situation going on. But at the end of the day, I still wanted to stay there because of comfortability. And even though I took that time off, I went back the following school year and everything started all over again. The bullying, the harassment, it started all over. So the first 2 weeks of school, I mean, they were coming at me strong. and I ended up resigning after those first 2 weeks of that next school year. And so when it comes to like trying to pick myself up again and try to figure out, what's next for me, I knew what God said as far as me being an educator. So I was looking for other educational positions. And so I ended up going to a school in the heart of Chicago. It was alternative high school. One of the actually the principal at that school was my former principal from the school that I was at before. So she understood my story. She knew my story. She was actually a victim, but she fought a different way and she won. So, she understood, at least I thought. So I went to her school, and this school is now a charter school instead of a public school. So they have different, parameters, etc. So at this charter school, I was able to, I was actually teaching science, and my certifications are, ELA, social science, but not earth science and environmental science. So, I mean, it was one of the toughest things I ever had to do. My commute was an hour and a half to and from school. I didn't really know the subject matter, so I was staying up late at night trying to teach myself before I taught them. Went and taught them the next day. So after being there for about 2 years, to make a long story short, I got manipulated by that principal. And so here it is. I'm back in this situation and feeling all of these feelings that, I had experienced before. And I resigned from that position. I had a friend. So my reboot was trying to move, trying to figure out what's next. So I had a friend that lived in Las Vegas at the time, and I found a plane ticket. I'll never forget. It was $64 round trip.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, let me go see. Well, I had never been to Las Vegas ever. Let me just go see, what I can do. So I came out in October after resigning. I stayed for about a week. And everything that I experienced, everyone that I met in that week was confirmation that this is where I should be. The hardest part was leaving Expressions of Praise, leaving EOP, leaving my family. I really didn't know anyone but that friend here. Leaving everything and trying to reboot my life, trying to reboot my career. And the confirmation that I needed was here. Like I said, everyone I met, everything that I experienced was confirmation that this is where God wanted me to be next. So down to the first morning that I ever woke up in Las Vegas, I was sitting in the hotel room. I was listening to a song. I'll never forget. It was Shekinah Glory's Yes. And the song had a particular verse that said, "I'll go if you lead me. I'll go if you lead me." And that kept repeating in my head. And that was what I was telling God. Well, I'll go if you lead me. I got on social media. A childhood friend of mine, which was now, she's now Pastor Watson. She said those same exact words in a post. I'll go if you lead me.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, God, I really hear you now. So now it's like, okay, so what are the steps? What do I need to do? I talked to my mom. My mom gave me blessing. She said, "Mika, you don't have anything to lose." She said, "You aren't married right now. You don't have children. Go. I'll be fine." And I'm like, but what about Expressions of Praise? What about EOP? That's my baby, And she said, "I'll step in. I'll do, what the children need. I'll transport them. I'll get them to and from practices and events, etc." And I was like, well, there you have it. And so that was in October 2016. I came back and visited December, 2 months later, December 2016. I found a place. I packed up everything and I moved to Las Vegas in January 2017. Moved here. I'm like, okay, now what's next? So I did the big move, but what do I do next? I knew education wasn't really, where I was focused at the time. So I'm like, what's next, God? And so in that quiet place what I thought, I thought I was alone, but I had God, and my relationship with him began to grow and get closer. And he showed me different things, that I never would have experienced, because being at home, there was so much,
Mhm.
there was so much noise, in a sense, there were so many people pulling on me and tugging on me that I never knew, until I got here, and I got a chance to experience a peace that I had never experienced in my life. And
Mhm.
when I tell you, everything just started to fall in place. I started taking classes, and the classes that the class that I was taking was for insurance. I
Uh-huh.
became an insurance agent, and
Yep.
I was working that business, and I got certified. I was a licensed insurance agent. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get less licensed in Illinois and Nevada. So I became a real estate agent in 2 states, and it was hard. Direct sales is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. And I just say that God is very strategic. And learning from that, remember, God spoke and said I was a teacher. But because of my experience, I was fearful, And so I just said it was heaven sent as far as the call that I got. It was a call from Kelly Services. I don't know how they found me, but they
Mm.
said, we have your information and we want you to become a sub. And I'm like, okay, that might work, considering, this direct sales is, not making me very much money right now. And so I became a substitute teacher, and I was subbing at various schools in the Valley. And pretty much the schools that I would go to, they would say, listen, will you come back and teach with us? And I'm like, no,
Mm.
I'm okay. I like subbing, I don't have to grade many papers, leave the job at the job, and I'm okay with this. And so there was one particular school that I kept going to, and it was Coral Nellis on the Air Force Base. And
Mhm.
those children were just so special, military children. They just taught me so much, even though I was their teacher, they taught me so much because of their background. They
Mhm.
were born everywhere, all over the world. And some of the experiences that they had, it just lit my fire again, And I finally looked at the salary of a substitute teacher and a salary of what a real teacher was, and what it would take for me to change my license over from Illinois to Nevada. It wasn't very tough. Doing reciprocity here was actually amazing. I just had to take one course, and I was certified here in Nevada. So I went through the process, and that's what I did. I got back into the classroom. I've been back into the classroom for 4 years. I started EOP Global Movement here in Las Vegas. So wherever I am, that's where EOP is. So there are certain people that connected with us from various states. We even have a member now that's in Uganda, Africa, and I'm just amazed at what God is doing. Again, the reboot, what I noticed, it's like a cycle. When I get to a level of comfortability, God throws something in there and says, hey, you're getting too comfortable. It's time to do something else. So that's kind of like what we're going through now. Another time that I had to reboot was basically recently. And once the pandemic hit. So here it is. We're a community dance group. We're in the community. We can't go outside.
Right.
We can't go outside. So we had to improvise. So what we did was, the first thing we did was we started having weekly Bible studies on the phone line, on a conference line. We started doing that. We started doing our Facebook group virtually. We started practicing choreography virtually
Mm.
in our Facebook group. And wherever we were, we were able to connect in whatever state EOP was a part of. We were able to connect virtually and work on movements, work on various things. And it was different. It was very different. But in order to keep the children motivated, in order to keep them from getting in a dark place because they can't go out, they can't socialize, this is what we had to do. And it worked. It worked. It was tough, but it worked. Once we finished, going through the choreography, etc., what we would do is we would record our part of the song, and we would take all the snippets from all the parts of the song and merge them into one video. And that's how we got our dances out. That's how we minister to people all over the world, just by putting those videos out. And it was a way for us to still stay connected. So that was the one way that I know that we had to reboot once the pandemic started.
Yes.
Last year, at the end of the year, around October or so, another reboot comes.
Mhm.
So we're coming out of the pandemic slowly but surely. And 2021 was also a very different year. We're virtual as far as school, not virtual. So we're going through all of that. And at the beginning of that year, God said, I want you to do an audition every quarter.
Nice.
I'm like, what? Absolutely not. Okay, God, I hear you. I'm obedient. So I opened the door for people to connect with EOP at least 3 times in 1 year. Never done that. We may have an audition like once a year. And so these youths just started coming from everywhere, to the point that our group had grew to about 22 members. And I'm like, this is a lot. And God is very strategic.
Mhm.
And at the time, I didn't really know. I was just like, wow, growth, numbers, you're excited to get numbers. But with numbers also comes a lot of different personalities, a lot of different, things that they're dealing with, a lot of different struggles. Youth, they are not how we were. I say that all the time. And the things that they deal with and the things that they go through now is totally different than the things that we do. And even though the ministry does have adults and youth, it's geared toward the youth. It's geared towards the youth to learn who they are, to find out their identity. One reason why we paint our face is just basically to enhance our expressions. But what happens to the youth, they think that when they have this paint on, it's like a mask. And so if it's like a mask, they know they can hide. And so our job as EOP is to teach them to be comfortable in the skin that they are in. So if you feel this mask is hiding your identity, then all means let's do it, so that when you take the paint off, you can be comfortable in the skin that God has given you. You can be, more courageous in what it is you want to do with your life.
Right.
And even though some of the youth are only with me for a season, I try to make as much impact as I can while they're with me, and teach them life skills, and teach them things, concerning God, and teach them things as far as, being spiritual. I don't do religion, but your spirituality, knowing that, there's something higher than us. There's something that is there that, if you connect to the power source, you will have more power than you ever know. And so that's one of the things that we try to teach them. So we had these 3 auditions. We have 22 members now. Whoa, oh my gosh. And so the third audition was a special audition. And I had 2 youth, and their mother was there. And she was sitting in the preps, and we don't call them practices, we call them preps, because we prepare to come before God's people. And, it's not sometimes even what you rehearse is to do something over and over again. And that's not what we do. But we prepare, we prepare our hearts so that whatever is from our heart can reach someone else's heart. And so the mother came, and she did what you call an impromptu audition. So she's like, I should just audition. So the children, oh no, mom, no, mom, no, you're not about to get out there and embarrass us. You cannot. So I got wind of it, and it was ironic, because on the paper, because we fill out a audition paper as they're auditioning, God just had me write down, Sasha is next. And so that's their mother's name.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, okay, Sasha is next. So I'm thinking, okay, fourth quarter audition, Sasha's gonna come and she's gonna audition. That's what I thought what God was saying. But to find out, God was speaking to her, telling her get her butt out there. And the daughters were trying to persuade her not to. And I was like, hey, we don't do that here. So she just did an impromptu audition. And when I tell you, everyone in the room just got up and started dancing with her, just not unrehearsed. Everyone was just flowing by the Spirit of God. And it was just the most amazing thing. And then we got comfortable and complacent, and it was time for another reboot. Let's just say that.
Yes.
So in October, God spoke again. He said, okay, that was enough auditions. Now I want you to sit down and I want you to teach. And I began to teach them modules. Every week, God would give me a different module, and he was showing me that this thing is so much bigger than what I ever could have imagined. And he said, you need to train them, and you need to train them with these modules so that when you open a school, I'm like, school?
Yeah.
Okay. When you open a school, then they need to be trained enough to teach themselves. And so it's what I'm trying to do now is build a legacy. Okay. Build the legacy with EOP. Okay, God, I got it. So every week there was a different module that he told me to teach. And each module actually ended up becoming like a manual. And he said, put it together as a manual, like a handbook, so anyone can use it to implement, the praise dance, flag bearing, any type of movement ministry. This manual will be a helpful tool to educate some of these dancers. And the rebooting process comes in that when you sit dancers down and you don't do choreography, but you're teaching them the word of God and you're teaching them different things that will build them as dancers, they start to fall off. And they began to stop coming. I even, because the classes were virtual, I would even do them on Google Meet, and I would record them. So if you couldn't come, then you would have to make it up, and you had to do homework. So it was tedious, it was hard work. And again, they just started falling off. But when things like that happen, I look at it and say, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me now concerning this ministry? And I know that where God was taking us as far as the school, etc., everyone wasn't going to be able to go. And so he just started to eliminate anyone that didn't need to be connected to us. And so I was very appreciative. And so there were 6 people that hung in there. And so now we went from 22 to 7 members. And when I tell you, they are so amazing. They are so awesome. Wherever I need them to step in, I had some classes that I had to take this weekend. They stepped up to the plate. My other 2, I have 3 other leaders now. One of them is a youth leader by the name Derhana Moore. She's been with me since 2017. She's amazing. She just turned 14, and this little girl is so amazing. Her mom, Pastor Delshana Moore, is so supportive. I call her our apostle of our group. She doesn't like when I do that, but she gives me so much insight. She was actually just texting me right before I got on. I'm like, great idea. So she helps us out a lot. And then, of course, Sasha. So I knew that, those auditions that we had were primarily to get Sasha, because Sasha was going to be one of the ones that was going to help us out. She was going to be one of the leaders that was going to lead. So I was so grateful of that. My co-leader, Prophet Caleb, that's the one you actually met us with when we ministered out there at Lake Las Vegas. He's amazing. He stepped up to the plate. That's like my right-hand man. And they just have been just just the foundation, and they're so strong. You have to have a strong foundation in order to build. And
Right.
then we have two other youth, which are Sasha's daughters. So right now we have the six of us here in Las Vegas, and then we still have our one member, Frank Sesmambo Hannington of Hannington Mimes in Uganda, Africa. He's amazing. He was the first actual gospel mime in Uganda, Africa, actually in Africa, period. So he's also an awesome addition to the team, and we're just building. We've been nominated for some awards this year. We'll be we're taking a trip to Florida. I actually got nominated for 3 different awards by the Dance Ministry magazine, that's operated by Dr. LaVivian, and we're just excited about that. And I'm just amazed at how the reboot has been, and how it, when we get comfortable, God comes again. Okay, time to reboot, time to move that out the way, time to do something else.
That's
So
right.
I'm just excited.
That's incredible. And that's something. I went to your performance and I was like, there's something here. I feel this beautiful energy. And then I said, I'd love to have you on the show to share about all you're doing. And I wanted to understand more about it. And I think that's incredible.
Yes.
That's something near and dear to my heart. Now, I grew up homeless 10 to 13 and a half, and then in foster care, in and out of homes.
Wow.
And emancipated at 15. So when I was 23, I started these stores. And in the stores, I made it an entire program, and I was actually funded by the government. And it was Job Training Partnership Act. And I had close to 200 kids that came through the program and learned every aspect of how to run a store. And I ended up with 5 stores. And then they would get a really good job somewhere else with our recommendation and training. But they were from foster care, and nobody wanted to hire them because they're from foster care. So they had this, where it was like there was definitely a problem, and they were, to me, that was my heart of the business. The reason that business was successful was because it was for my extended family. So like you, I went back to give back, and they're still many years later now, they run their own businesses, and we still, go for the holidays and talk and stay connected, because they're more than just people that went through a training program with me. So that was one of the things that we're very connected in that way. And
I knew it.
Now. And so when I see things like that, I can feel that. I can feel the difference in it. I think it's something that's so important. I believe we're all blessed when we answer the call. Like you said, okay, I'm going to Vegas. I know nobody, one person. and
she's not even here anymore.
Yeah, that's right. And so we just go with it, and we do what we need to do, and we are provided for and richly blessed because of it. Sometimes it doesn't come from what we think. So sometimes you're funded through school or teaching or doing other things, but it's the heart-based, what you're doing, that shows up.
Yes.
It makes a difference. And, as far as the schools go, that was something. I actually adopted 3 and had 3 of my own. So these 6 kids that are now grown as well. And I remember my first son had hearing problems from birth. And so speech therapy.
Wow.
And when we went to the public school that I actually attended as a kid, they told us, no, he has to go to ESL and do the Spanish class. And I said, but he can't speak English right now, barely. Like, the kids are going to pick on him. I'm so worried, And they were like, no, because we need funding. They literally told me they needed the funding. Last name happened to be a Spanish last name.
Oh,
okay?
wow.
So it was based on the last name, had nothing to do with his needs. So I was like, no, we're good. And that planted a seed where I actually worked for 20 years. I did some documentaries, and I campaigned to help many charter schools and different laws get passed in California, at least, that helped a lot of children I'll never meet. But that was what it was. I was like, this is based. I was really young when I had this first child. I was like 18. and I
Mhm.
didn't have
Mhm.
the zip code. And I said, "Wait, you know what? If I had a different zip code, this would not be the case. He'd be getting
Mm.
speech therapy help, not,
Yes.
I
Right.
would help."
ESL.
And so I was like, "No, this is good." And it was really hard. I mean, I was paying $750 a month for speech therapy, plus I had to pay for private school.
Wow.
I did a Catholic school. We weren't Catholic, but we did a Catholic school because that's the only thing
Mhm.
that I had. I couldn't, like, I didn't have the opportunity to transfer my student to something that fit their needs. And now we have opportunity
Yes.
transfers. So that was something. So these issues, it's an issue that it just hits people across the United States, and then you can't deny it. When you look at it,
Mhm.
it is
Mhm.
not equal and not fair. And who does it hurt the most is
The children.
it,
Mhm.
and it hurts the whole entire society because the child, and
Yes.
in the documentary, I remember saying the one child that you denied the education, that's the one
Mm.
that when you're really old, that's the one that could have saved your life. But
There
yeah,
it is.
you're denying yourself because we're all together.
Yes.
And so
Mhm.
that was what I feel and what I felt, and something that I'm still very passionate about. So
That's awesome.
it's just we all make a difference. So for those tuning in, you're making, Mika, you're making a huge difference in people's lives, doing what your heart has brought you to do and using your talents for good. And each of us, we can contribute in our own way as best we
Yes.
can. And that is going to the grassroots roots effort of all contributing. These are our children,
Mhm.
not the school,
Yes.
not the states, nobody else's,
That's
it's
it.
ours. And so we have
Yes.
to do that, and it does make a huge difference.
Yes. You know what? I the day that we actually danced at we ministered at Lake Las Vegas. You just do not know everything that we went through. It was a busy morning. We didn't think we were gonna make it. Uh Prophet Caleb was like, no, let's just turn around. We're not gonna do it. And then it was actually the breast cancer awareness
Yes.
outing that they had. And he the guy that called us out, Professor McDuffie, was like, you guys are going to miss it. The turnout wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to shut it down. And I'm like, well, we're almost there. Just hold the people, hold the people, a few more minutes. And we made it. And I know right now why we had to do that, because God knew that I needed to connect with you. Because
Yes,
if you recall, you came towards the end
I
also.
sure did. I did.
Yeah.
I
And
actually
I said,
shows and doing other things, and I was like, "Oh, I really
yes.
usually don't go to these things, but let me just dress up and go," and, into
Hmm.
the, athletic outfit from my work outfit, and so
Yeah.
I was like, "I know this looks bad being late, but something feels like I really gotta go there," and that was
Yes.
it. That was it. It was perfect.
Yes. It was a connection that we needed to make. And I was so excited when I met you, and I was like, we have to do this interview. This is going to be awesome. Like, God is like, it's something about Miss Sheila. I want to make sure that we do this. And then time kept going on and on. You sent me the information. You said you needed a snippet. So I know, sometimes the enemy tries to discourage you. And that's basically what he was doing. He's like, well, you don't have any snippets. You only have long videos, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, man, I got to try to get a snippet of one of our videos. She asked for a snippet. She didn't ask for a whole video. And so I was like, oh my goodness. And then time just kept progressing, and time kept progressing. And I was like, okay, let me get with her. I mean, this was October, right? When this first happened, I think, right?
Yeah.
And then now here we are. Um, as a matter of fact, it was October because I still had on my paint, and we had to go straight from ministering at Lake Las Vegas over to the library to teach the next module for the handbook. So yes, I remember that day because I taught in my paint and everything because I wanted to make sure that I got over there and was there for EOP. But I thank God that I was at least able to connect with you, because I know that there's some other things that's going to be cooking for us. I can just feel it. I
Yes,
can just feel it.
yes. And for those tuning in, how can they get involved with what you're doing? How can they connect with you?
Okay, so right now, like I said before, we are a community mind group, and we go out into the community. It's not about the four walls of the church. We believe that we are the church, and it resides in us and our heart. So we go out. We minister on Fremont, where vendors down there will go out there, and people like, "What are you guys doing down here? Yeah, we're gonna dance. We're gonna minister for God. We're gonna try to help you develop your relationship with God." So it's outreach. So sometimes if you're in Las Vegas, you can find us down there periodically. We are also available on Instagram at EOP Global MM. That's EOP Global MM, like Movement Ministry. We're also on Facebook as EOP Movement. Type in Expressions of Praise, you can find us. And on YouTube, we're also Expressions of Praise Movement Ministry. We're in the process. We have a great producer. We have a podcast on the Brilliantly Unique Network, and it streams on about 4 or 5 different platforms. And we have a show called EOP TV every Sunday at 5 p.m. So you all can check us out. We do different interviews with dance artists all over the world. So it's a platform for them to share their gift of praise dance, mime, flag bearing, their gift of dance, period, to anyone that is in the community of dance. So that's an awesome show. It's been blowing my mind as far as the feedback that we're getting from that. The calendar stays full with people to interview, so that's always a blessing. So that is on again, that's called BU Radio Network. It's actually a radio station that has a plethora of different shows and different podcasts, every day of the week. And we've been blessed to have a slot on Sundays at 5 p.m. We have a wonderful producer and friend by the name of Natrell. He does a little bit of everything. He's a songwriter and producer and DJ and engineer and musician. He is just multi-talented. So he helps us a lot. He's even been a photographer for us. He's taken some of our videos and pictures, and he's really been a blessing to EOP. And he's in the process of developing our website right now. So we'll have that up and running. That's going to be eopmovement.com. So I'm excited about that. That's coming down the line in a couple weeks. And pretty much you can just find us, type in Expressions of Praise or EOP somewhere on any of those platforms, and you should be able to find us. You can find me. I'm Mika Mo, Mikamo on Facebook, on Instagram, but we're here. Find us.
Yes.
Find us. And you can reach out to Sheila. Sheila Mac can put you in the direction of getting in touch with us too.
Definitely. And after this, what I'm going to do is I will be playing the short reel that I have where you're working
okay.
the students. So that will be shown next. Yes. All
Amazing.
right.
I forgot what I sent you. Sit back watching too.
Yes. And
okay.
for those tuning in, we'll be back after these messages. Thank you again, Mika, for being a guest on the show.
Thank you so much. It was a great opportunity, and I appreciate you. And I can't wait to do more future projects with you, because I know there's some things brewing.
Yes.
All right.
All right. I have found something magical, something new that I am loving. At this stage in my life, I have been switching to the cleanest, best, healthiest makeup, shampoos, facial products. So I did find a incredible makeup line, and they have been around quite some time. It is called Beauty Counter, and if you go to beautycounter.com/SHEILAMAC, SHEILAMAC, or SHEILAMAC.com, and at the top of the menu, look for Natural Beauty. That will bring you to the site where you can learn about the specials and give clean beauty a try. I am just loving the difference it's making in my face. And one of the things that was really bothering me was a lot of the other products, I could not find eye makeup that wasn't irritating. So this is really like one of the few products I can actually wear around my eyes. And so I'm really loving everything. It makes my skin feel really clean and fresh. And so give it a try. Again, SHEILAMAC.com/natural beauty to learn more. And here is a little presentation of the group. If you are just tuning in, this is NBC Sheila Mac Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and I have a special Happy New Year announcement for you. That's right, just for beautiful, authentic you. So in this new year, I am personally plugging in all my 2022 up-leveling routines. That's right. I'm not doing goals, or as much to say as I'm not just doing a resolution that I talk about or just write it down on a list. I'm actually already scheduling in the small acts that I need to do each day that are actually going to bring me results over this 365, I guess, or less now, when you're listening in 363 to whatever it is, days. So at any rate, one of the things that I would like to introduce is that we will be having some talks on business and investing. That's right, business and investing reboots this year. So if you are looking to do a side gig, or you have a business yourself, or you're in a career and you are looking to earn some extra money, I have some tips and different things that my family, I have 6 grown children, we will all be participating in some of these and trying them out and sharing opportunities with you. And then we will also be talking about real estate investing, which is something that I have done since I was very young. So my real estate investing experience comes from, well, when I was 18 and a half years old, I bought my first little triplex. I was already working at Jet Propulsion Lab in JPL in Pasadena, California, where we have the famous Rose Bowl every year right near there. And so I saved up my money and bought this little triplex. It was very humble kind of fixer thing. And I lived in the back teeny tiny unit and rented out the best parts to everyone else. I guess I was house hacking before that was a term. And I continued to save up and invest. I was very creative on my financing, still going to school and working. So, from that to investing in many different properties, I started gift stores at 23. And the first one I leased at $5,000 a month. And I said, wait a minute. That's a lot of money to be giving to somebody, the landlord, every single month. And my mortgage, if I can save up enough to put down, I can get into a mortgage. And you know what? With business credit, which I will be sharing all about, I did just that. And business credit is a magical secret. So if you don't have a side gig, that's why that first part is important with your investing, is to have that extra income or side gig, have an LLC or an S Corp. So setting that up at 23 when I started my gift stores, by the end of the first year, I had more buying power than most people. I had a corporation's buying power. Like, they would give me credit. You can't believe I could just walk into any dealership and they'd have these specials. I'd get the best credit, like 0 interest. I'd be able to negotiate the deals on things, different vans or whatever I needed for the store. And it was just incredible. And I actually used the business credit to purchase some of the properties. One was the headquarters and rental property. And so I had some mixed use, and I actually purchased the other 4 buildings and stopped leasing and just became an owner. And so I got into real estate and investing from being an investor, and then later as other store owners were really interested in and wondered, wait a minute, You're half my age, they would say. And how are you buying buildings? What is going on? And so with that, I went ahead and I got my real estate license and started sharing about that. Worked at a small owned brokerage. And then from there, helped and led some real estate courses for real estate agents on 1031 exchange, and have done multiple 1031 exchanges and helped many small business owners and families to invest in property. So I'll be sharing about my journey and how this year, even if you think you know this sounds like, how is this possible? I'm going to help you figure out if that's something you're interested in, ways that you can make it become a real possibility for 2022 moving forward. So I hope you tune into my show. There will be some upgrades. We will still be doing lots of incredible interviews with amazing people sharing about resources and reboots and ways they got back on track and hearing their stories. And also we will be getting step-to-step challenges and ways for you to tune in, call in, and ask questions and be guided to actually make 2022 a wonderful time for your business and your personal life. All right, so stay tuned. I'm looking forward to hearing from you soon. If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's Sheila Mac Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and I have some news for you. Yes, you. I'm celebrating my 3rd year now on the station and will be expanding the show to a global network as well. You may now find the Sheila Mac Show on all major podcasting channels, and if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, all the episodes are now available for viewing there as well. And I'm asking you for a quick favor. If you like the show, please help support the spread of this reboot channel on YouTube as well. My goal is to help as many people as possible through our interesting times to rebuild, reinvent, and reboot your business and personal life. I also wanted to share a little bit more about how I got here, what I do now, and how designing a business, career, and life on your terms is more than possible at any age or stage in life. I am an enterprisingly forward-thinking consultant, show host, and best-selling author. But how did I get here? Well, I began my career as an entrepreneur and property investment strategist back when I was 23 years young, when I boldly quit my government job with NASA JPL to open my first of 5 large gift stores, while also starting to invest in property. I got to work with some of the world's most loved companies, such as negotiations on leases with Warner Brothers and winning trips to London as the top-selling Crabtree and Evelyn provider in the U.S. for multiple years. My stores were built on heart as I gave back to the community I came from. So now, some of you know this and some of you don't know this, but as a young girl with parents who were not well enough to care for me, I was homeless at age 10, then in foster care, where it was really hard to get a job while in the system. I finally emancipated at the age of 15 to start college early. While running my stores, I worked with a government program. Back then, it was called Job Training Partnership Act, making my stores an open source training site where close to 200 at-risk youth started their careers. Yes, I began my career helping business leaders and working professionals to design a life they love, where they can have success in their careers and get to the business of life. See, a funny thing happened along the way. When I first opened my gift store, it was kind of crazy because I was this young upstart. That's what a lot of the store owners called me. My first store was in Montrose, California, in this sweet little hometown shopping park with other stores and restaurants nearby. And so I was the young upstart that didn't know what she was doing. At least that's what everybody said. And I didn't really care what they said. At that age, their opinion was like, I don't really care. So that was probably a really good thing, because I stayed focused on what I needed to do. And I had negotiated to lease out a 5,000 square foot gift store that needed a lot of work, and I got free rent and for about 6 months, and I had to start making the rent, which was $5,000 a month, which was a lot of money back then, $1 a square foot. And so I had to learn and relearn. I finally did hire quite soon in the game. I did hire a marketing expert, branding expert, I guess back then, and that lady really helped me to figure things out when I first started. And when you first start a business, especially when you're young, it was like I had no idea what to do, but I needed to learn because my rent was going to start coming due every month. And over that time, I started having more success. I did crazy things, like stayed open until almost midnight every night, along with the restaurants who were very close to my store, while everybody else closed shop at about 5 or 6 p.m. So I was making more money from the start, and I just really, my store was to help my kids, and the products I sold was whatever the community wanted. I sold lots of things to people in the entertainment industry. I worked with cruise ships. I worked with many different people in the community. And later on, the store owners actually came to me and asked me if I would consult them and help them. I actually started buying my other buildings because I didn't like the idea of paying rent for years and years and years and not building equity. So I did get my real estate license through that and invested and bought my other 4 store buildings. And lots of the other store owners worked with me, paid me to consult and help them do what I was doing. And I didn't really even know it was called consulting. I just knew how to figure it out, I guess. And so that's how I started my career. And now, I raised 6 children, all that, and now they're grown. And so I get to come to work every day and do what I naturally do best as an enterprising and forward-thinking business leader. Through my show, courses, and live events, I guide entrepreneurs and working professionals like you through the profitable steps of building a business, creation to expansion, marketing from planning to implementation, wealth preservation through strategic planning and, yes, real estate investing, and lifestyle design so that you can earn more while getting back to the business of living your best life. So I do invite you to tune in here to KCAA Radio, and also I would really appreciate it if you went to my YouTube channel, SHEILAMACSHOW, and gave a subscribe and a listen to some of your favorite shows. And I do have some other exciting things, including a free gift to thank you. So if you go to www.sheilamac.com, that's SHEILAMAC, SHEILAMAC.com, there you can get a free gift to get started on your reboot this year. And now, back to the show. Tune in again right here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.